You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Cynthia Runge, owner and attorney at Peridot Family Law in Boston, Mass. Go Celtics. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. We got the Peridot part right. Is that correct? Okay,
Good
good.
indeed.
All right, another good time to ask you. So welcome in. I'm glad to have you on our podcast. Record a episode with a Bostonian, which is super cool because I'm over here in central Massachusetts. So it's nice to learn about another lawyer from Massachusetts. So, and also a big thank you for being a sponsor for our Boston Connect event, which was very successful. We had about 100 people there probably throughout the night. So I hope you enjoyed yourself there. Like a little bit of a mix of legal professionals there at Boston Connect.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So welcome in again. Let's just start with the basics, Cynthia. So Massachusetts born and raised?
Yep, I grew up in Massachusetts, went to high school and college here, and then I went out to California for law school.
Nice. So what town are you from in Mass, in the Commonwealth?
I grew up in Wilmington.
Wilmington, okay. And what was that like? Is that near Boston or no?
It's north of Boston. It was pretty residential and not very diverse.
Okay,
And didn't really, kind of like a bedroom community when I grew up there.
gotcha. All right, so you tell us about going from BU, which is a great school, obviously Boston University, very well known in the area, and you went out to law school in California. So why did you decide to, after living all the way through undergrad or high school undergrad, and then out to California for law school? Tell us about that.
So
Excuse
I
me.
think a couple things were going on there. The first part was that I had wanted to go to college in California, but my dad was really hoping I would stick around in Massachusetts. So I said, "Well, I'll go to BU. I'll go for one semester, and then I'm transferring." And I
Okay.
just when I was there, I stayed because then I'd made friends and I didn't
Yeah.
move. But so I did follow through and go to California for school. But I was there for 2 years and then I came back but even though I graduated from a California law school, I actually spent my last year at New England.
Oh, New England Law? Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. That's pretty cool. That's a good school.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you got into BU. You were there for undergrad. Like, why go anywhere else? I kind of have to agree with your dad there. That's
Well,
pretty good.
I didn't think I was going to be a lawyer. When I was in
Okay.
college, I was studying communications and public relations. And, I was there at the height of LA law. So that's dating myself quite a way. And I just really started developing an interest in law
Yeah.
and applied to school and got into a law school out there. And that was that.
What did your parents think about that when you were like, "Hey, guess what? I'm interested in law school." Like, were they just like blown away, or what happened?
Um, my mom had passed early
Okay.
on,
Sorry.
but my dad was always really supportive of whatever, I wanted to do and thought it was a great idea. And yeah, it just seemed like it was actually with the background I had, writing and speaking and communications, it actually was a pretty natural
Yeah.
transition.
I'd say so. So you say LA Law. Was there like a moment that you were like, "Oh, I'm going to do this"? Because some of those shows have these. I remember, I'll never forget. Like one of our, I think probably like a torts professor was like, you see these shows on TV, these attorneys coming in Armani suits. Like that's not how it is. So like, what was it like? Did you have a moment, or was it just as you got more into like course load at school, you were like, wow, like this is something I really want to study?
Yeah, I think it was more of the latter, like more. I think towards my junior year, I started studying business law. Like that was one
Okay.
of the things I was able to
Yep.
do, and just exploring all that. I like the idea of going to court. I think that there's also kind of, I have an interest in drama,
Okay.
which is sort of a natural transition to what I currently do. But yeah, I like speaking. I like being on my feet.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so it just seemed like a natural sort of transition. And that's how my interest
So
developed.
you didn't mind like getting called on or anything at school, like you kind of were. It wasn't like a big deal for you, I guess, speaking in front of all these people and
Not too much. It didn't bother me.
yeah.
It
Okay.
didn't bother me. I mean, when I got into law school, I really liked moot court.
Okay. That's
Yeah, I
good.
really enjoyed that.
All right. So you receive your JD, and 10 years later, you received a certificate in museum studies. I
Yes.
know, like you had. I want to. We'll ask you about this later, but you have like on your website an artist of the quarter, which is like really kind of interesting.
Mhm.
So tell us about like going back after 10 years and like what the reason was behind that for like a museum studies certificate.
Yeah, sure. So the first 10 years, when I got to law school, I definitely had this feeling like sort of a quirky phrase, but like I felt like I was in the right church, but not
Okay,
necessarily in the right pew. So when I got out,
interesting.
it's like an old time saying. But anyway, when I got out, I did title insurance defense and
Yep.
real estate and workers' comp, and it was interesting, but it wasn't what I was passionate about.
Right.
And I had a background in arts, and I was on some local arts councils, and so I actually left my legal job to take a fellowship at the De Cordova Art Museum in Lincoln. And I left like a good paying job for this like $12,000 a year fellowship that was
Wow. Okay.
only going to be for a year. And that's when I also went into Tufts and got the certificate. And from there, I went and worked at another museum. And the funny thing was, is I kind of gravitated back to law, but
Okay.
it was in a different way. It was doing intellectual property licensing. And so
Wow.
I got to work on making films, videos, audio. And so there were lots of rights issues involved. They did a lot
Okay.
of stuff when they first started, but that was cool. And then um, from there, I transitioned once again. And because I had my own sort of personal experience with family law, and
Yeah.
that's how I started doing that.
So just to back up, you said you were working at a museum.
Yes.
How do you like, I always kind of was curious, just like as an offshoot here, like, what do you like do at a museum? Like, what goes on there? Do you like dust off like the sculptures and like you're kind of like pricing things? Like, do you look for new artworks to display? Like, what is that position like?
So this particular position was working in the corporate art department, and what they would do is they would coordinate with artists, and they would take their work, and then they would rent it out to different spaces. So one
Okay.
time I remember it was funny. We were bringing in some big artwork. It turned out to be like a law firm.
Okay. Oh,
There
okay.
were some people that had been in the class that I had at New England, so kind
Oh,
oh, who is that person?
yeah.
So we would install it, we would wrap it, and so it was like meeting the artist and cataloging the work and getting it to and from different installations. And yeah, um, what I really remember about that was one time we were there and it was during 9/11. And I remember listening to the radio and we're all just sort of, I think we were just like trying to get ready for this show. And that was a really crazy day,
Yeah. Oh, yes.
yeah.
Yep.
So
Never forget it.
never forget it.
Yeah. Yep. Know exactly where I was.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, you started out in IP and you did like 5 years there, right? So About 5 years, maybe in IP.
So what happened was it was mostly real estate the first 10 years, and
Okay.
then I transitioned to working in art museums. And that lasted about, I'm going to say 2000, probably like almost, there was a little bit of a crossover, but probably another 10 years doing that,
Okay.
8 to 10 years.
And then so then you're heavily involved in mediation too at some
Right,
point. And then so I'm just trying to lead up to the launch of Peridot Family Law, right? So
right.
first of all, tell us about the name Peridot Family Law. That's where you are currently. That's your law firm. Tell us about the name.
Yeah. So, I had practiced under my own name for about 20 years, Law Office of Cynthia Runge. And when and that was great. I'd done a lot of different things under that, but I wanted to rebrand and come up with some concepts about how I wanted to think about practicing family law. And so I was really looking for things that kind of spoke to the idea of growth and change and positive growth, so just looking into different options for names, um, I had this peridot stone that I really liked, and it was just it sort of stuck.
Okay.
And it's not my birthstone, but I love the color. It's very spring-like,
Okay.
it's sort of energetic. And so from there, we just kind of, totally rebranded the firm.
So that's awesome. That it's very like creative. Actually, it's sort of like artistic, right? Like going back to the art thing. So tell us about the services you're offering right now at Peridot.
Sure. So, the funny thing is I started out before as I was getting into family law, I started out doing a lot of divorce mediation, collaborative law. Most people, it seems like they start off doing litigation
Hmm.
and then they transition. I've been the opposite. So I started off doing mediation and divorce mediation, collaborative law. But
Okay.
over time, as our client base has expanded, we've met, it's like we attract that kind of a client, but
Hmm.
we've also attracted a lot of people who want to do that, but their spouse doesn't. Because if your spouse doesn't want to mediate and you do, you're going to court.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So we actually, I would say probably three-quarters of our caseload is in some form of litigation. That doesn't mean that it's all, nuclear litigation. It's, different, divorce is a spectrum. On one end, you've got like pro se's who gets the TV all the way up to,
Right. Right.
there's really a huge spectrum.
All the
Uh,
way up to who gets the Beanie Babies, right? Did you see that?
yeah, the
You know,
Beanie Babies,
yeah.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
No, that makes sense. That's interesting. And like, so why family law?
well, it's interesting because when I was sort of like doing things at the museum, I would look at, CPCS had this great training. It was Children and Family Law panel, and I always thought that was really interesting because I like the social work piece of it. And I had wanted to do that training. And then with mediation, I had an opportunity to get like I think it was similar, like a fellowship that evolved into a paid position. And then then because I was working in the juvenile court
Hmm.
doing protections, working with DCF, sort of the next natural progression from there was to get involved with family law.
Mm.
And from there, I became of counsel to a really well, regarded family law firm in Cambridge. And
Okay.
and I was there for a little while, still have a great relationship with them. And then I went off on my own and I've been in Boston now for about 10 years.
That's amazing. What's the best part about having your own firm?
The best part of having your own firm is you get to make the decisions,
Yeah.
and it's also the worst part.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I bet.
Right. But I'm really glad that it's worked out this way. I think early on in my career, I think I was always looking to like find the right place, to fit, like a good fit for me. But I think the place that I feel the most comfortable is just my own office.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that things have sort of worked out the way they have.
How do you do things differently, would you say, than another firm?
It's an interesting question because, we've done a lot of hiring recently, and I was having a conversation with one of the
Great.
staff and asking her about, how was it different at your previous firm? And she said the volume, like it was like a huge sort of a volume type
Mm,
business.
okay.
But she said the thing that was different about our firm is how focused we are on the clients.
Hmm.
And I don't ever want to lose that. So even
Amazing.
like as we grow, I want to make sure that all of us know, oh, that's Mr. Jones or that's Mrs. Smith. And we know what's going on with their case, or we know how to find out. They're not strangers. And that's really important to me.
So that personal, like customer base or client base type of touch that you provide all of your clients.
Right, right. So, for example, there might be times when one of my colleagues is working on a case, but we talk about it, and then, I'll jump in on a Zoom meeting or something, and because we're not double billing them for that. I'm there because I want them to
Yeah.
know, hey, we're your team. We're
That's
all
nice.
here
Yeah.
for you, and I want that. I want to know everyone that's
Yeah.
in there.
Right. You want to know what's going on with your cases too. Like, so what size is your firm right now? Like, how many associates do you have? Like, legal assistant?
We have two full-time paralegals.
Wow.
We have an of counsel attorney who's part-time, and we just hired a new associate. So
Wow.
she's new to us, but she's experienced with litigation and
Mhm.
she's great.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Let me ask you a question about COVID. Like, you heard this stuff happening, like with the relationships, people stuck in the home. Like, did you see like a spike of any sort of like relationships being disrupted? Like, did your office, like in particular, like take on any of these like COVID cases, I guess, so to speak?
Yeah, we did. The biggest thing, the most remarkable thing about COVID was cases that started during COVID lasted a really, really
Yeah,
long time. They
yeah.
took a really long time to get through the system, whereas some of the ones that happened like later on got done quicker. But I have some cases that started during COVID that literally just ended, a
Really?
couple of them.
Was
Yeah.
that like a backlog because of all the cases?
Yeah, and it seems like, the stuff that came in later, like it was able to get on a track, but the stuff that was kind of in the middle, it just, I mean, the other things that would happen that was really tough for clients was not only the delays, but a lot of times you'd get like two or three judges on your case,
Oh yeah.
like constantly starting all over again or having multiple pretrials. And then, you have to prepare for that.
Right. That could be difficult.
Right.
All the different questions, having to answer them 100, like all these different times, and
Right.
that feels so unfair, especially in family law, where I feel like there's a lot. I mean, there's law, but there's also like so many different situations that could happen, and you go through expressing yourself, maybe through your attorney or yourself, like as a witness, and it's just you have to do it all over again. It's just not. It seems very unfair, I guess.
And it can be kind of traumatizing depending on
Traumatizing to
the
say it
issue
again and again and again. Yeah,
for the clients. Yeah.
right, for sure.
Yeah.
So tell us, Cynthia, about some of your recent accomplishments at the firm.
Okay. Well, one thing I'm very excited about was this year I got accepted into the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers.
Wow,
So
congratulations.
I was really excited about that. That's sort of been a goal of mine. And really looking forward to doing more with the organization and getting more involved with that.
So tell us about that. What are you going to be doing in the academy, and is it like sort of a mastermind, or you get to connect with like a lot of different
So
attorneys?
yeah, you do. It's a national organization.
Okay.
So you get, I mean, they have these annual meetings every November. I actually went before I knew, which was a little, awkward, but it was It was really impressive because you're presumably meeting people that are really experienced and have been doing this for a while, and so you're definitely not the smartest person in the room, so which is a good thing
Yeah,
because
it's a good thing.
right,
Definitely. So what jurisdictions are you admitted in?
Massachusetts and New York.
How did New York come about for you?
So when I graduated, from a California law school, and but I also finished in Massachusetts. It just seemed like it was a smart thing to do at the time. So I always had an interest in New York, and I took the bar. And the funny thing is I never used my license until COVID, and then I
Right.
actually was able to start like my collaborative practice in New York
Nice.
because it was all on Zoom.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
yeah, I'm trying to expand into New York that way, potentially, other arrangements as well.
That's amazing. Tell me if you see anybody you would like me to introduce you to. We've done. I mean, you've been at it for a while, but we've had an event in New York a couple times. We're going to do another one actually this spring, likely this spring, and be happy to make some connections if there's anybody out there that or type of attorney that you want me to think.
That would be awesome.
I'd be happy to do
It,
it.
I've talked with Erin about it. One of my the things in my bucket list is I'd love to find, I don't know, like an of counsel position in New York, still keeping our Boston practice
Yeah,
or something like that would be kind of cool in
yeah,
family
for
law.
sure. That sounds great. I know a couple matrimonial attorneys there. So how can we get you more involved in social media? You have an Instagram account. You're on Facebook. What do we need to do? We're going to put this on Instagram, and we'll get you out there a little bit. But I'm just throwing that out there. Maybe we can get one of your associates to help you out, or one of your paralegals will do some of the work.
It's funny because my daughter said, "You have an Instagram account and you don't even follow me." And I said, "I don't know how to."
You don't know how to. That's right.
So, yeah, I need to have her show me.
Oh, perfect. That would be
Funny.
sounds like a good job for
Yeah.
her. So tell us about. Well, we've talked about your interest in art, but I did notice that you have Artist of the Quarter. Is that something you're keeping up with?
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that program.
So the woman who designed my website and helped me rebrand the whole firm, we know each other because I used to be involved with a group called the Women's Caucus for Art when I was
Wow,
involved with museums, and I've known her for over 20 years. And so we reinstituted this sort of art exhibit. And the fun thing is it's not completely final yet, but we're going to be moving our office. And at that time, I think I'm going to have a lot more opportunities to do things like that as well. So I'm looking forward to expanding that.
really cool. That's awesome. You need somebody to come in and make a big mural on the wall in your law firm.
Okay.
Why
Yeah,
not?
kind of like the Sistine Chapel or
You
something.
should. That'd be amazing. So tell us, in your opinion, what it takes to be a successful family law attorney. What qualities do you need to really be able to handle it?
It's funny, I have friends who are criminal law attorneys, and they always tell me I could never do what you do. And I'm like, well, you represent murderers. They're like, yeah, but it's different. It's like, so I don't know other than the fact that having gone through a divorce,
Mm,
maybe, many years ago, I think it really when I got out of law school, I had zero interest in family law.
yeah.
But I think going through the process gives you like an appreciation for what people are feeling and what they need.
Mm,
And when you have, for
yes.
me, I had a great attorney, because as a lawyer, I would never want myself, as my own lawyer.
Right. Right.
But I think that informed, how I think about it. Not all the time, because
Yeah.
some people can be challenging, but it's, I can tell you that this practice resonates with me in a way that anything else I did before didn't,
Okay.
because I really feel like I'm helping,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's a real need, a need for people who care.
Right. Do you think it helps too? And I think you just said this, but Do you think it helps, like, if somebody else, and not just necessarily in family law, goes through like a similar situation, like of the law that they practice? Does that make sense? Like, so basically, like helping somebody like you're practicing law and you've been there before as a litigant or a client, and now you're helping somebody else. I mean, I don't think it's like a requisite, but I think it could definitely help, right? Like with empathy and like knowing what the client's going through.
Yeah, I think it can. Like sort of maybe a related analogy is when I was working on DCF cases,
Yep.
I would have parents say to me, I've had this social worker come in who's like 22 years old and doesn't even have children. So how
Right.
can they understand what it's like to have kids? Or so I think, lived experience
Yes.
can be valuable.
Right.
It can also, as long as you can use it and realize that it's not the only experience
Yeah.
or not get caught up with it. Like your bad divorce means all divorces are bad. Or
Right. Right. What I mean, what do you tell us about the courts now, like with divorce and everything? Like, what are like the can I ask that? Like, what the main reasons you see are for marriage, like
yeah,
dissolution and all that sort of thing?
it's really all over the
It
place, to
is
be
okay.
honest with
Yeah.
you. Yeah, I mean, there's I would say if the one thing that I find prevalent in all of them is where communication just shuts down,
Mm.
or it's just yeah, I think communication is like a huge one. Money is another.
Yeah, I bet. Yep.
Spenders and savers.
Yeah.
Um, Infidelity,
Yep.
it comes up, but it's not necessarily the end all. Depends on the parties involved.
So give us your process when somebody calls Peridot law. What do you do? Like you do some intake, you see if, I mean, they probably will have a case if they want to get divorced. Do you try to mediate it? Do you go right to the stage where they want to sign those papers? Like, how does that operate?
Yeah. So what we do is one of the paralegals will do an initial, intake to make sure we don't have any conflicts. And then we offer like a free 15-minute call with either me or Shannon,
Yep.
who's the of counsel attorney. And then from there, you can kind of usually, in most cases, you can tell like, is this person ready? Do they need more time? And if they feel like they need more time or they just kind of want to, depends where they are in the process, you can
Mm.
offer to meet with them for a consult, like a paid consult. But to be honest with you, divorce is funny in that it is not uncommon at all for you to talk to someone and then hear from them a year later.
Mm. Okay.
It's
What do
not
you mean?
uncommon
Like
at all.
they're not ready, and then then like the year later they're like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah, yeah. Or, it can be 6 months, it can be right away. But, just because somebody you don't hear from somebody, like it is not, I just had it happen today. Someone
Really?
I talked to a year and a half ago, and okay, I'm ready. So
Do you think the other spouse knows that they're calling?
I think in this case, yes,
Okay.
but it depends. Like I can think of cases where I talked to someone for a long time, and there might be like if there's substance issues, that
Okay.
can be really hard for someone, it can take someone a long time, like alcoholism. Um, that can be really hard because there's sort of that codependence
Right.
of still wanting to take care of the person, even though the alcoholism is just harming the
Wow.
kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it can take a while before somebody's really ready they realize that they have to get divorced.
Right. Yeah. Not an easy job that you have, but sounds like you're.
No, but it's important, and there's so many people like I really admire the judges because like if you're sitting in probate and family court, it's like one after the other every day. It's like the complaint department.
Wow.
You know.
Yeah, that's a
So
lot. Yeah.
that's a lot.
That's a lot. That is a lot. So somebody like an attorney who wants to be a family law attorney, what advice would you give them?
Um have some kind of a background in psychology.
Okay.
And I would definitely do training in mediation and collaborative law because I think all of those things just help to make you a better family law attorney,
Okay.
as well as being, you have to be able to go to court and be able to do a trial because
Yeah.
sometimes, if sometimes your client may want to settle, but it's just not possible.
Right. How often are you in trial?
A fair amount. I mean, I'm in court pretty regularly.
Yeah.
We have a couple of trials a year.
What's the family law like Boston community like? Do you know most of the family law lawyers?
Think so. Yeah. I mean, there's always new folks coming up, but I probably know a fair amount of them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I asked that because at our event, it seems like there were, a number of PI attorneys, and it seems like they all sort of know it, like a lot of them, or at least the people that support PI attorneys, like know each other. So I wasn't sure how, Boston's a big place, but it seems like the bar might be like somewhat intimate, people knowing each other, that sort of thing.
Right, right. Yeah, I think there's a thing called the Mass Academy of Trial
Yep.
Attorneys. And so they have a lot of personal injury attorneys. Actually on that in that group too, because they have a subsection of family law. But
Mhm.
they have a lot of good connections, because they can refer to each other. But in practice, I find that some of my best referrers are other family law attorneys. We get a bad rap that we're
Mhm.
not nice. But and there's that. There's definitely that. But the other side of it is that there are a lot of good like attorneys who do care and they're reasonable people. So it's like anything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plumbers, you know,
What's
taxmen.
what's Cynthia like in court?
What am I like? I'm thorough,
Yep.
I'm detailed, and I'm committed.
You're committed. That's good. You know the case cold.
Yeah, you have to if you're
That's
going to go to
good.
trial.
Oh wow, that's a lot of work. That is a lot of work. Well, so what's next for Cynthia and Peridot family law?
Well, like I said, we're gonna be moving. We're gonna need to get like a different space. We've been in
Okay,
our current space for about 10 years. And like I said, looking at possibly expanding to New York, continuing to grow the Boston office. And yeah, it's been great. We've had a lot of growth. I've got a great team, and I'm very, very grateful for that.
that's awesome. Congrats on all your success.
Thank you.
Did we leave anything out that you wanted to come across with today, like that you maybe you'd want to share? I don't want to leave anything out.
No, I don't think so. I think you hit the big stuff.
All right, good. I was trying to do that. So, well, thanks for coming on. Please stay there. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Thank you to Cynthia Runge, Peridot Family Law in Boston, Mass. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.